Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science. I'm Joy Moore, and here with my co-author, Kent Anderson, and we're recording this on Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. Hey, Kent.
Hey, Joy.
How's it going?
It's okay. I've been thinking a lot about
Cool.
our interview with Iris Van Roy and Olivia Guest last week, and I hope people had a chance to listen to that. It's kind of been making the rounds on Blue Sky, which has been great, and we love all the attention that those two have gotten because they deserve it. But we've been thinking a lot about it because it contains a lot of relevant things for us, and especially kind of going into peer review week and all the emphasis on AI that is coming out of that, right?
Yeah, so on that note, should we do a high-level recap of the themes that we learned from Iris and Olivia
Yeah,
in terms of their what they're working on is raising awareness within academia on the dangers and misguidedness of adopting commercial AI products without critical thinking.
right. Especially general AI.
General AI. And so, as professors who study and teach cognitive science as well as artificial intelligence and mathematical models that are feeding into the AI industry,
Hmm.
they're very well placed to explain why skepticism of adopting commercial products in particular is very important. And so their case is to the academic community and the people who are making decisions on behalf of the types of things that they use is to stop and to abide by their five key principles in terms of evaluating this technology.
Right, and those key principles are the ones that they accepted by becoming academics in the Netherlands
Right.
in the
In the
first place.
Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the most striking things, and I think it was Olivia who really introduced this, was the idea of tropes, right? And all the different tropes that are in play here, especially the trope, then the anthropomorphic tendency for AI, people to talk about AI as if it's a person or it has human characteristics or abilities. So even the idea of summarizing, I think Iris said this, that it can summarize text. No, it can create a statistical mirror of a text, but that mirror may be distorted in ways that you don't understand or introduce things from, gleams of light from elsewhere, and you don't understand that. And it's also unnecessary. But the whole idea of that it's masquerading as human, as thinking and as understanding and can be an agent and all of those things, it was really striking that about that. And also the illusion of inevitability, right? This is definitely happening even though nobody asked for it.
Yeah. I was thinking during our conversation about the AI summaries, and that's been something the plain language summaries has been something that's been long a goal or a potential goal of academic journals.
Hmm.
It's that we have the abstract, but the abstracts are written for other experts.
Right.
But maybe if we have a plain language summary, then it'll resonate with non-experts, meaning people outside of that discipline,
Hmm.
but also with the public. And it's very, very hard to get it right. And I've
It's
worked with,
impossible
and
for
you have as
academics to
well.
do it because they aren't
Yeah.
they aren't capable of writing to that level.
Well, they're not supposed
They're
to.
not
It's
supposed
not their
to. Yeah,
job.
it's nothing
Right.
against them. It's just that's
Yeah.
it's well meaning, but that's not their job. Journalists even have trouble doing it, but they're more likely to get it right because they work in that space every day and they know how to write a news, crisp news copy. Whereas these people, are they get so absorbed in the nuance, and then the AIs, if they step in, they get things wrong because they don't know what's real and what's not. So yeah.
And then just to close that out, the journals that do have these front halves,
Hmm.
like Science and NEJM and Nature and others, and a lot of academic journals that I've worked on really aspire to have these front half, quick at a glance, what's in this issue.
Right.
And that is really, really hard, and it's really expensive
Hmm.
to get the right people to be able to digest that information, for anybody who wants to flip through. So the
Yeah, those
notion
people work really
that,
hard, and they're really specialists in that area.
Mhm.
Yep.
So the notion that, a big automated platform can just use AI to generate plain language summaries,
So insulting.
in a way that is and it's not reproducible, is um, ridiculous.
Yeah.
So.
I think one of the other things I took out of that interview that kind of woke me up was the idea that big tech is a big conflict of interest. So I'm not sure that journals or editors or authors or academic institutions appreciate that if somebody's getting funding from big tech, that is now a big conflict of interest in the sciences. And they need to understand what that funding was for and who it came from, because I think we're used to like looking for pharmaceutical companies or device companies or reagent companies or things that sell things to consumers in the supplement or ingestible space or something like that. And we don't look at big tech, and they said basically that the conflicts of interest in tech aren't seen as conflicts, so that makes tech firms more capable of influencing academics because nobody's asking whether they're getting money from CZI or they're getting money from a foundation that is, behind the scenes pulling levers that are anti-science, and there are plenty of those in the midst of things.
Well, it's easy to connect the dots, with conflicts of interest with companies who are overtly selling something.
Hmm.
But that is the whole long game of tech, is that you are getting something for free. They're not making you subscribe to Google or making you pay to use Facebook. And so it seems like a free service, when we've known for many, many years that if you're not paying for it, then you are the product,
Right,
you know.
right.
So what you're contributing, your participation in this, is how they are making money.
Yeah, and
So
they're
I
doing it
think,
in a way that's harming a lot of people because and this came out with the Charlie Kirk assassination, and some of the response to that is that these social media platforms and other platforms really drive people to extremes. They they prey on isolated people. They prey on people and peddle misinformation, and they whip everybody. Or certain people get whipped into a frenzy by it or get misled. And there was also a great piece in the New York Times about this and how people get science misinformation, get led down rabbit holes of science misinformation that Derek Barras and some others from the conspirituality team, along with New York Times journalists, worked on. And it's big tech is not a benevolent player in this. They have their own politics, their own belief system. We go into this in the book quite a bit. Others are exploring it, Adam Becker and others. But this is a big conflict of interest, and I think journals need to wake up to it and really start calling it out, and also disclose who's paying your APCs, people. We'd love to connect those dots. So it was a great interview. They were fantastic people, and I learned about Cantamounts up in Vermont. Um,
yeah, I think we need to set the record straight that Olivia was correct, and you didn't know what kind of creatures were living in your backyard. So can we just take
but
care of that?
yes, I agreed. Agreed. I'm new to that backyard, by the way, just as an excuse. And they're disappearing. They're not becoming more prevalent, which is a sad thing. So
What is a cantamount?
a mountain lion.
Is it a, oh, But is it, what makes it specific to Vermont?
I think it probably where's Tiva's? I don't know. I'll learn. I'll learn
It
and I'll
came
bring it
from,
back. So
maybe it's Canadian.
maybe it
Maybe
is. Maybe it speaks.
with global warming, they're moving south.
Maybe it purrs
Okay.
in
So,
Quebecois. I don't know. I'll find out and I'll bring it back and that'll be my when I figure it out, it'll be a discovery of the week. How about that?
okay,
So
great. Thank you.
all right. So we want to talk. This is peer review week, so we want to talk about it in a way that you might not hear elsewhere. And this actually goes out to all the academics and authors and editors out there more than the publishers. But publishers, pay attention. And we want to ask the question: are we breaking peer review? Okay. So it's peer review week, and as
So
yeah. Oh, go ahead. So
I just have to say,
yeah. Well, let's
we're
start
saying
again.
peer, what is peer review week?
Peer review week is a week where we are supposed to focus on peer review. So it's circular logic.
Okay.
I think I actually was involved in the inspiration for this at some point, like a decade ago, because I remember there was a conference call with some SSP people, and I remember being in my office at AAAS, and I think I can list at least one or two other people who were there and who were on the call. And I said, we should, and it was when there was a lot of concern about the degradation of peer review and predatory publishers and all that. And I said, we should launch something called Peer Review Week. And then I went off to a meeting. And then next thing I knew, it was bubbled up into something. And, that's what it has been. But it's a week supposedly to focus on the importance of peer review and its essential place in achieving scientific claim space that is well regulated and stable would be my interpretation of what it was supposed to be in my mind at the time.
Yeah. And so a lot of people are having meetings or publishing, think pieces and having debates, and it's in conjunction, it's around a couple of big international conferences.
Right, and you just came back from the
And
peer
it's,
review conference, which is every 4 years,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
right. What that was established long before the
right,
idea of peer review week. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
So there's a lot going on in the publisher space this week about peer review, the future of peer review. Is peer review broken? What is the peer review system? And so we wanted to take a slightly different angle on peer review than what's going on out there. So
right, right. And
where
I
do we
think,
want to start?
yeah, I think we want to start on a definitional aspect of it because when even 10 years ago when I talked about peer review, at least in my mind, it was something very different than what it's become and what it's becoming, because there's a trajectory to where it's been and where it's going that's pretty consistent, which is it's been, the term has been appropriated by technologists as and becoming more and more like screening or GitHub processing. It's not about careful internal deliberations by a team of editors with advice from outside reviewers and then knowledgeable professional workers within the journal considering it to enhance whatever input comes back and interpret it better and get to a point where there's an acceptance decision. So I think it's been degraded to a great extent. I think it's been turned into almost a manufacturing check where it's a good enough stamp, and it's been rendered somewhat meaningless. So I think it's been commoditized a bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was starting to think about the platforming of peer review is kind of the start of all of this. And platforming peer review came kind of even about a year or two before platforming of journals. And
Mm-hmm.
we started that in order to get more efficient, to cut mailing costs, and to be able to metrics and people in a more efficient
Yeah.
way. So it was
And make things
the
easier for
platforming,
authors and less expensive for authors too.
right? Putting peer review management online was designed to not to interfere with what was going to be published in the journal, but just to make it a little cheaper and faster for everybody. And then that took a long time to, get the kinks out and to do it at scale. But then fast forward, 30 years, now peer review has been platformed to the extent that it is viewed as a process, a manufacturing process, as opposed to an intellectual process of deciding what to publish or what not to publish.
Right.
And I think in the platforming of it, we kind of lost sight of the intent of it, and and then when we
Well, and
look at how it's
who it's
being used
for, right?
today
Right.
and who it's for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the big change was the switch to, or the acceptance of, because it hasn't been a full switch yet, but the acceptance of an author pays business model with Gold OA. And that made peer review more of a, it lowered the bar because it made it so that the more papers you accepted, the more money you made. And there was just a lot of talk about, well, we can just trust the scientists. And as you and I both know, you can, but you also, they can get things wrong, or they can take shortcuts, or they aren't the best writers in the world, and maybe they didn't explain it well. But there's a lot of process that can go into that, or maybe they sent it to the wrong journal, or maybe they messed up with the statistics, and all those things can happen. So that's why it's good to slow down and think things through with a collaborative journal system of review with expert editors, professionals, and outside reviewers advising them. So peer review went from advisory to rigorous journal systems that were aimed at providing the best and most relevant content to readers, to a system of lighter screening to make sure that the authors got as much published as possible, because that's also how the publisher made money, and that aligned their interests. And then the mega journals just ramped that up, turbocharged it like nobody's business. And that's when it really became kind of just a manufacturing process, in my opinion.
That's right. It started as a way to align the incentives of the editors and the publishers with their readers and their subscribers to decide what not to publish,
Mm-hmm.
to be accountable to those external stakeholders, to within the author pays open access model. It's aligning the incentives of the authors with the publishers and the editors with no external checks and balances. So it's more of, is this okay enough, as opposed to, is it correct for our audience, because there's no external audience.
Right, and there's no fear of the audience really canceling. PLOS
Yeah.
One is not. They're not concerned about the audience canceling their subscriptions. They're concerned about authors finding it too difficult to publish there and going to scientific reports. And there was a really interesting preprint this week that kind of touched on this from Frontiers. If you don't mind, I'm going to go into that a little bit because I can't get that off my mind.
Okay, please do.
So Frontiers appeared with this very another defensive press release. I think MDPI had one a few weeks ago, where they're basically saying, hey, this preprint came out saying that all these papers emerged from these public databases, and they were using the same Mendelian regression or whatever, blah blah blah, and we've now caught it, and we're going to stop publishing so many of those. And then they said in a very kind of, I don't know, villain voice, and we've contacted the author of the preprint and we'll be speaking with them soon. And so I thought, okay, well, that's interesting, because, and they were talking about high churn science or fast churn science, and they shouldn't have that. But then they're covering a preprint that hasn't been through peer review, first of all. They're responding to it in a very defensive way. So I looked at the preprint, I downloaded the data, and the authors did, like, I think 430 papers, and like a third of them came from Frontiers journals, which was, the most of any publishers. All were published OA, by the way, which again, where's this money coming from? It just boggles my mind. I still think there's money laundering going on in here somewhere, but that's beside the point. So then I contacted the one of the authors, the corresponding author on it, and said, "Hey, I read your preprint. Where are you planning to publish it? And if so, are you planning to publish it OA?" And I said, "Yes, that's the plan." And so I responded and I said, "Well, you're just feeding the beast, because all of the journals that you were covering, you may not know, were all those articles were published open access gold OA. So they paid to publish those articles from public databases, and they got through because they paid to publish." And it just reminds me, again, the thing we keep telling people is you've got to follow the money, and these business models matter a huge amount into what's actually happening. So, that's and the way peer review has been distorted by the gold OA business model is important for people to understand. And you just hit the nail on the head. It just realigned incentives so that now peer review has basically, at its most extremes, been sidelined in order to privilege authors over reviewers, over editors, because it's privileging money over scientific claims validity, in my view.
And to just touch on the topic that Frontiers brought up that led us to that preprint a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So the core of the investigation that was reported in the preprint was that these NHANES and other publicly available databases are ripe for people to quickly, either via AI or other means, create a lot of papers that the world doesn't need. And we've been talking about this, I think, for months. And that was mm-hmm. when I first started going back into the literature, when we were even researching the book. It was like, there's all these papers that are just like, it's a different flavor of this, that, and the other.
Right. And they tend not to do the right kind of statistical analyses or study designs or anything. It's just they don't know what they're doing.
Right, but they have got great headlines, and these headlines mm-hmm. have turned up in the Maha reports. They're turning up in all sorts of other review articles. And so there has been a factory for these papers that have been going on for longer, probably than these preprint authors even know. Mm-hmm. But what's not taken into account is what is the motivation for these papers? Following the money, it's either the authors are going to get some kind of reward, probably mm-hmm. in their career, for mm-hmm. turning out a paper. Mm-hmm. It's easy to do that when you have these open science databases that are ripe for the picking. You don't have to have a lab mm-hmm. to do it. Right. And then there's incentives for the publishers to put them through, because they're not reporting primary investigations. They're not reporting anything that's really going to get a lot of scrutiny. So that goes back to the point that I've been trying to make for a long time, is that this industry is creating a lot of papers that a lot of people don't care about until long after the fact, and then they realize there's a lot of stuff here that shouldn't be. So that's
and I liked what the term AI slop, which was kind of perfect, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's showing up in other fields. Like there was just a report about systematic fraud uncovered in mathematics journals. And it's the same kind of thing going on, where it's probably even easier because mm-hmm. all you have to do is say, write me a paper about blah theorem or about trying to calculate this, and an AI does it, and then it spins it out and puts it up, and you've got a paper. And, and then they've got this, so the mathematics community is coming out and saying, hold on, we need to tighten things up here because we're getting AI slop into
and that's more for
our literature.
and that's more for probably for citation manipulation than anything
Yeah.
to churn out fake math papers. But also, what are the odds that there's going to be somebody who's going to take the time to debunk your fake math, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
but then it gets ingested into an AI system, and all of a sudden the AI system thinks that 2 + 2 = 5, and we're into 1984, but it's in an AI system.
Well,
We
they
can
already
see
don't
that
know. The
they
AI
already don't
systems
know.
already don't know how to do math, so don't give them
Yeah,
crappy math.
they don't
Come
know how
on.
to play chess. They don't know how to calculate pi. They don't know how. They're just dumb. But anyhow, but they're dumb by design. We're being kind of dumbed down by these tech promises that are very empty. But it's a belief system that has just been pushed on us as a marketing scheme. And as part of that, I think peer review has been sidelined in a lot of ways. And I've mentioned some of the more extreme ways we have. And this is important for academics and authors and editors, especially to realize, but authors, that you're being exploited, in my opinion. So if you post on a preprint server, most of them are commercial by nature. Your works are going to be used to teach an AI system. Your names are going to be ingested into a marketing database. You're giving that organization free leads to market to authors and to use your identities. You are giving free text to Chan Zuckerberg Initiative LLC, Elsevier, Springer Nature, MDPI to train AI systems. Then they're going to market their gold OA author services to you using that information. So just remember, when something's free, you are the product. It's the social media platforming game come to science. And that's we can complain about preprint servers and how bad the information is in them, but they're completely exploitative of the goodwill of scientists and authors. And they're ingesting all your information with your total permission. So I think that's also the most extreme deviation from peer review. And so it's interesting to me that Peer Review Week has never come out and condemned preprint servers because they undermine the whole idea of peer review. They say we
Well,
don't need it.
I think the the
I know they don't
propaganda,
say
which
that, but yeah, the propaganda
no,
is different.
but
Yeah,
no, the propaganda machine is starting to break down when you look at the facts,
true.
because the idea is when you go back to eLife and the preprint servers and this whole notion of make it available quick, get community feedback, and then decide where to curate and have a version of record. All of this was stolen from archive from the
Hmm.
physics community, and the promise was you as an author are going to be able to get more benefit by getting your information out there earlier, by crowdsourcing feedback,
Hmm.
and then we just have a bunch of different versions that are just getting better and better along the way. And then if you want to end up publishing in a journal, then everyone down to the reader is going to benefit by you having made your information public and freely available from the get-go.
Right.
And that is a scam,
Hmm.
and it's not bearing out. And I saw a great presentation in Chicago at the Peer Review Congress around, and there were a couple on this theme, but this notion that the authors and the community are just going to naturally update, change the records, and set the records straight before this information makes its way into public policy or other important venues where this information is ratified is a falsehood.
Hmm.
And so it's not this promise is not being realized, yet it's still being exploited and it's being encouraged along the way.
Yeah, and I
And
think it because of the scam aspect, right?
yeah, yeah, there's just not enough to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's just not going to happen. And so, if you want to put your paper out on to get it to people very quickly, I don't know what the right platform or venue is
Write a great
anymore.
paper and have a great finding, and a great journal will move it along very
Mhm.
quickly and give it great prominence. But the other thing is that authors, and we've talked about this before, authors have learned to exploit preprint servers back. So what they tend to do is they wait until they have an accepted paper, and then they post their manuscript on there and just leave it there, because and that's why there are probably no revisions, and that's also why those studies
Why
that
would
compare the preprint version with the final published version find so little difference, is because that's a big confounder these people don't understand, is that the preprint version is very close to the peer-reviewed version because the authors wait until they have an acceptance decision to post it. But again, this gets back to the whole idea, even if you do that, authors, you're being exploited by these platforms because your text is going in to train their AI systems, your names are going into their marketing databases, and if you think you're tired of getting emails, well, you did it to yourself in a way, and these platforms fooled you into doing it. Um, and then you have others like Faculty of 1,000 Research, which lets review happen after publication, and the review approach is really pretty awful. And then eLife, which lets authors overrule reviewers. And again, Peer Review Week is not calling those out. So it's not the kind of starchy, stand your ground, defend the house kind of week I was hoping when I think I was in that meeting where we first articulated the idea. Um, and it's become a little bit more of an enablement of the manufacturing process version. And with its focus on AI this year, I think that's even
Yeah,
more the case.
it's a vendor driven conversation now
Mm-hmm.
more than
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
And so the types, looking at what was discussed at the peer review Congress versus what's on the docket for peer review week is night and day.
mm,
The people who were doing research and presenting at the peer review Congress were looking at the nuts and bolts of the intellectual process of peer review and how it's been compromised and different ways to learn more about that and what to do about it. Whereas what's being presented, or at least what I'm seeing through, my filter, is what are the top down and tech driven ideas, solutions, and things that we can sell you to further flatten peer review as a concept at scale, so that we can start to, continue to build more value in the supply chain in the pursuit of publishing more with a little less bad, right? Opposed
right,
to
right.
publishing only the best. It's how do we publish the most with the least worst.
Yeah. So I have an exercise to propose to all the listeners who might not be skeptical about AI in the peer review process. Take any one of the announcements this week from Elsevier or Cactus or Silverchair / Scholar One, or I think there might be others coming, and sit down at lunch with a friend of yours you like to laugh with,
You mean
and
like a
each of you
peer?
take like a peer. Yeah, sit down and give them peer review, but it has to be that kind of friend who you can be snarky with and have good giggles with over silly things. And even better, do it in a pub after work and over a beer or a martini, and read it out loud to each other. And if you aren't convulsed with laughter within 5 minutes, I would be shocked, because the way these things read, if you have to read them out loud, they are just they just leave me in stitches. I mean, you and I have read them out loud on the phone sometimes, and I'm just doubled over with laughter at the way these people try to present their claims. It's so funny. So try that out, and you might find
Yeah.
out that it's really a great fun exercise to read AI marketing copy aloud to each other.
And think about it in your consumption of other marketing material from any other big business or big industry. It's like we're presenting this inevitable we've defined a problem that you didn't know existed, and it's inevitable to ruin your life unless
Right.
you buy what we're
Right.
going to
Can you
sell you.
imagine
It's
like
the same
Fruity
thing.
Pebbles coming out and saying, Fruity Pebbles are inevitable for your future and you must consume them or they will, but they're dangerous as well.
Well,
Oh, it's just so funny. I love
on
Fruity
that,
Pebbles.
no, on the on oh no, Fruit Loops was the one.
Fruit Loops was the one with
That's a great example. That's the one that the Maha folks, glommed onto. It's like, oh no, these kids are eating Fruit Loops that have red dye in them. It's like nobody said nobody needs to eat Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
change the dye to make a better Fruit Loop. Either eat the Fruit Loop or don't.
But
This is
Fruit
the
Loops
same
are
thing.
inevitable. You have to change the diet because we're all eating Fruit Loops. Anyhow, the other takeaway I think from peer review week and the way that the term peer review has been degraded as a defining process into from a careful, rigorous, multi-layered, multi-week, multi-step process to a gentle screening of it during a manufacturing process to QC, fast and fun publication events, is that brands need to find better ways to. It's lost its brand power to say something was peer reviewed. We have Maha people using it for their gaslight journals, saying this is peer reviewed. We have predatory publishers saying it's been peer reviewed. We have mega journals with unqualified reviewers, and I can document that, who say that they peer reviewed something, but they have no domain expertise in what they claim to have peer reviewed, so they're not really peers. And then the whole editorial process has been kind of swept aside to say, well, if it's peer reviewed, if two other people look at it or anything like that, and that's not peer review in the sense that in the sophisticated sense. And so I think journals need to find a new way to. I think if you call yourself peer reviewed now, I'm just going to be. It's kind of anti quality in my mind at this point.
And to the point of the commoditization of peer review, and in looking at what a lot of the academic community has been talking about for a number of years, and even what's still coming up on a daily basis, is that publishers are profiting off of the unpaid labor of peer reviewers,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a hidden cost, and so a lot of the backlash that's coming against publishers and their profits, that we've been volunteering to do things for you so you can make money.
Mm-hmm.
Even make that peer review should be a paid for. And then our exercise
Right.
is buying into the commoditization of peer review as a trust marker.
Mm-hmm.
And so to the academics who want to see a better scientific literature, who want less waste, who are fighting against AI manufactured slop, understanding what peer review is at its core, what it was intended to do, which is to restrict and to filter from a human perspective, versus how it's being used now as a quality control check within a factory, farm, fast fashion, manufacturing at scale process. These are two totally different things. And so make your choice of where you want to participate, which companies you want to align yourselves with, just the same way you make decisions on how you spend your money or how you purchase things in the rest of your life, because it's really no different.
Yeah, and I think one last thing I'd want to touch on here is we have some people coming from Arcadia Science and the guy who made a couple $1 billion off of eDonkey 2000 and now he's, I wrote about this earlier this week, but
Jeb
their statement,
McCaleb.
yeah, Jeb
Yeah.
McCaleb and Samay Chow and I forget the other one, but they they have, they're total technologists, right? So they basically say we don't need any peer review. We just put it out there and we'll figure it out. And that's a path to ruination. We're already pretty far down that path, and look at how science is doing right now. It's doing terribly, and it's flooded with bad information, and bad actors have clear paths to the public, and we're not doing our job to get the right science to the scientists and focus on that. And so when I say peer review is kind of, if somebody claims to be doing peer review, that's a red flag, because I want to know what you mean, and why aren't you saying other things like we have a great audience, we have a rigorous standards, we have extremely diligent disclosures of everyone who's paying us, including the authors and their funders who paid us gold OA fees. We have all of these features that make it so you can trust us. Peer review has been hijacked, and it's no longer a marker that we can trust. And so it's kind of sad to see peer review week become something where it's a way for companies to promote AI commoditization of technology over human care. So
So to answer the question, are we breaking peer review? Or, as a lot of people have been asking, is the peer review system broken? No. I would say we're not breaking peer review, and a peer review system is not broken. It's the meaning of the word peer review, or the term peer review, is not what it used to be. And so the easiest way to move forward to figure out the best way to align yourselves with quality is to understand how peer review is being practiced in a publication and what that actually means to the community.
right. Yep. And especially if you're a reader, right? That's where the pressure needs to come from. Is did that peer review process actually, you know, scrutinize the work carefully, make sure that it was getting to a relevant audience, have the kind of statistical and expert checks and balances inside, and do all of the kind of disclosures that you would expect, or did it fall short? And if it fell short, then it's peer review of a lesser sort. And then there can be other things that just don't even do it. So be a skeptical and careful consumer of information.
Yep. Just like you would anything else that you care about.
And read those AI marketing blurbs to each other if you want a good laugh. That's all I have to say, because they are hilarious. All right, shall we? We want to mention one other thing. We're going to move on to discoveries of the week, but we have a couple of great interviews coming up. So if you liked Olivia and you liked Iris, and we happen to have
And Jason.
and Jason, so if you liked those interviews, yeah, they were all great. More are coming, and we can't wait. We've got some really great people to talk to. So
Yeah.
that's all.
And then we don't have to talk so much. You can learn along with us.
Exactly, because
And then
we love it.
hopefully, well, we've got an ulterior motive. By the more smart people that we talk to, the more we learn from them, and hopefully we can pay it forward in the next things that we talk about, and then more people we talk to. So,
Yeah. So speaking of that, by the way, we had another ulterior motive. If you are a smart person who has something to say on these topics, reach out to us at disruptedscience@gmail.com, because we would love to have more interviews down the road. We've got our little list. We're going to pursue that, but we'd love to add to the list. And we know there are a lot of smart people out there with relevant insights. All right, so let's move on to discoveries of the week. All
right, can you go first?
I go first. You warned me this one might be a little touchy, so I'm going to approach it carefully. So I recently, through a bunch of little moves in our house, was able to reassemble my stereo system with my turntable at the centerpiece. It had been taken apart for a while. And so I've been enjoying listening to records again at a decent volume and realizing how great vinyl records sound compared to digital Bluetooth connected music. But I didn't really have it was just a sense, right? And I'd forgotten, all that stuff. So anyhow, I pulled out an album, Van Halen's 1984. And I thought, side one.
Know it well.
Yeah, side one. So I put on side two, and it starts with a song called Hot for Teacher, which has a great double kick bass drum intro and all sorts of crazy stuff going on, a great opening guitar riff. And the video is hilarious. It's still so silly, but, very, very not appropriate for these days. But in any event, I synced up my phone version of that with Bluetooth, got the volumes matched, and then just switched between the two. And the vinyl was so much better. It was unbelievable. I'd switch between the two, and it's like, well, the digital's flat, the vinyl's alive, fills the room. The differentiation between the instruments was clear. It was just so much better. So, of course, now I have to order a couple of recent favorite albums.
Couple of records.
Vinyl. Yeah, I've got to order a bunch of records. So please subscribe to the Geyser because I need record money, please. Thank you.
But that also, and I think about people today who are discovering songs from the 80s and the 90s that would be deemed totally inappropriate according to their lyrics. They're only getting them in the flattened digital version. They're not getting the entire ambiance of what it's like to blast it on a record player or, even like on a cassette tape in your car where there's the sonic part of the song was what we were into, not whether the words were cool or not.
Yeah. So now I've got to try headphones with the record because that was the golden listening experience, right? Some really good cans and a record
plugged into
spinning. What I remember listening to the original Star Wars soundtrack on headphones from a record, and it was just transported me to musical nirvana. It was amazing. So my discovery of the week is not really a novel one, but it's a rediscovery of the week, which is that vinyl sounds fantastic on a full, nice, rich stereo system with good Sony speakers and all that jazz. So go find some vinyl, put it on, relax, and then once the record's over, read AI marketing copy to each other and giggle, and then put it on side two. That's my stab at it. What's your discovery of the week?
Well, my discovery of the week is also, I would say, hobby related. And I haven't talked about pickleball in a couple of weeks. But I did have a really good I had a personal discovery around pickleball the other day. As I'm getting a little bit better at the game, there's two parts of it. One is kind of like tennis, like hitting against the ball machine. It helps you get your stroke down right, helps you get power, helps you get more accuracy at the long game, right? But where pickleball differs from tennis is that you can actually get more points by just ducking and letting the other person hit it out.
Yep.
And so attacking every volley that comes your way is not the best move because that gives you more opportunities to hit it out.
Right.
And let them duck. Right. And so I'm learning in pickleball and maybe other parts of life, the strategy might be to just don't do less.
Jiu-jitsu, pickleball jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah, that's very true because the ball tends to fly, but your instinct is to react, right?
Yeah.
It's like
you want to react, you want to hit it back. Yeah.
How much of that is the sound that you crave at this point? Because it's fun to hit them.
A lot.
Yeah, that sound is
it's
good.
Fun to hit them. It's easy to hit them. Sometimes you hit it right at another person, and that's another way to get a point, by because they're
The
just like,
bloodlust.
you know, yeah. Um,
Oh my gosh, you are deep in it. I love it. That's awesome. All right, we've got pickleball
so
strategy and vinyl records for that's. Those are two good discoveries. So I hope everyone finds those useful. And just remember, sometimes less is more. So that's a good thing. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for our friends at Provoke the Truth for their great music. And let us know what you think. You can reach us at disruptedscience@gmail.com. All right. So do you have a silly sign off for the week?
oh, nothing really comes to mind based on what we've talked about today. So I guess I'll see you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.